Okay, very good morning, all the participants. On behalf of Udupi branch of SRC of ICI, I welcome all the participants for this virtual CP meeting, where we will be discussing on the amendment made on the Rule 42 of the GST in relation to real estate sector. I welcome you all. Now I request our branch chairman, CA Pradeep Jogi sir, to give the welcome speech of this virtual meeting. Thank you, sir. Over to Pradeep sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning and a warm welcome to the members to this first virtual meeting organized by Udupi branch of SRC of ICI. Our mother body, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, is always keen to implement multiple modes of digital learning. Amid the situation, ICI has come up with virtual CPA meeting for the branches to keep the members updated and given guidelines for conducting virtual CPA meeting. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Real estate sector is a great significance in economic development of our country. The nature of real estate service is different from normal supply of service. Today, we are all here for the first virtual CPA meeting of Udupi branch of SRC ICI on the topic amendment in Rule 42 of GST in relation to real estate sector. We have with us chief guest for the today's VCM, CA Ganesh Y, past chairman of Udupi branch of SRC ICI. I welcome you, sir, to this VCM. It's a great privilege for us to have an young and dynamic speaker, CA Anvesh Shetty from Mangalore, with us to enlighten on this topic. I welcome you to this VCM, sir. I have also with me CA Lokesh Shetty, Secretary. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Once again, I welcome all of you to this virtual CPA meeting. On behalf of Udupi branch, I take this opportunity to thank CA Ganesh Y and resource person CA Anvesh Shetty for accepting our invitations and joining with us for this VCM. I also thank Nitin and Bangalore ITT team and chairman of Bangalore ICA Ravindra Koreji for the IT support. Dear friends, you can post your questions on the chat sections which will be answered after the session. Dear members, I'm happy to share that we have redesigned and updated the branch website udupiica.org. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude my welcome speech with a quote of Brian Tracy. Excellence is not a destination, it is a continuous journey that never ends. Over to Lokesh, sir.
Thank you so much, Pradeep sir, for the opening remarks. Now I request Ganesh Vai sir. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Kindly, I request the Ganesh Vai sir for the opening remarks for this webinar.
Respected Chairman of the Udupi branch, CA Pradeep Jogi, Secretary of the branch and moderator of today's program, CA Lokesh Shetty, all the members of the managing committee of Udupi branch, the young resource person of the day, CA Anvesh Shetty, and all my dear members of the Udupi branch and webinar participants. A very good morning to one and all. Udupi branch is one of the most vibrant branch of the SRC of ICI of Udupi, SRC of ICI. It has been undertaking a lot of what you call knowledge dissemination program throughout the year. The present torchbearer of the branch, CA Pradeep Jogi, is continuing this tradition. And since the commencement of lockdown, he has been organizing many such webinars. And this is the first virtual meeting and the fourth webinar being undertaken by the Udupi branch of SRC of ICI. I thank both the chairman and all the members of the managing committee for continuing this tradition of knowledge dissemination among the members of the Udupi branch. All the members may be aware about the latest email by the institute on May 27th. It has given that before 30th of June, the members can have at least 10 structured CP hours through the virtual meeting mode. And I think we are going in that direction. So all the members will be eligible to have structured CP hours by going through this webinar. I think if you read that email, it's so ambiguous that we may need one more webinar to understand the ICA email regarding the structured CP hours through the webinar mode. Anyhow, all of you are organized here. As all of you know, the members take keen interest in taxation subjects of any seminar. Even during my period, we have seen that any seminar on corporate company law or the institute pronouncements, maybe auditing and accounting standards, evoke least response. Whereas a seminar on taxation will be attracting highest number of participants. The income tax has become almost a settled law, requiring the members' attention only once in a year. But GST being a new devil and an angel requires member participation on a day-to-day affair. We have seen all the changes in the frequent changes in the acts, rules, and we have also seen the circulars and notifications challenging the rules and the acts. Moreover, the multiple advance ruling coming from different states are adding flavor to this confusion. The latest confusion being applicable to the ice cream parlors. Members may be aware of that. It has become a national issue. It is creating chill to the ice cream parlors, even during this hot summer. Now coming to GST, all the sectors are really complicated, but the real estate sector is one of the most hammered sector under any business, under any taxation law. I think even now none of the real estate businessmen have properly understood the taxation logic applicable to them. If you see from last 50 years, starting from the Gannon-Dunkerley case law, arising due to the constitutional amendment to the taxation law, the confusion prevailing in the real estate sector is not at all being subdued. We have seen the various case laws, the confusion during the VAT period, we have seen during the service tax period, and we all thought that GST would put a full stop to this confusion vis-a-vis the real estate sector. But today, what we see is more confusion, more galore relating to the real estate sector. One of the major problem regarding real estate sector is the idea of the finance ministry to color a movable transaction, to color a immovable transaction as a movable transaction. So this is the core problem arising relating to the problems of the real estate sector. The finance ministry wants to paint the immovable property transaction as a movable goods transaction, and this paint fades over a period of 4 or 5 years due to the court cases. And we have seen that during every election year, the real estate gets certain bumper. The year 2019 election year not being an exception to that. We have seen that during the last day of March 2019, the entire concept of taxation of real estate was changed from the earlier system of 18% and 12% tax rates. It has been reduced to 1% and 5% tax rates with the condition that there will be no ITC. After 1/4/2019, the real estate taxation, the complication is limited only to the commercial real estate sector and what do we call as the ongoing projects, those projects which are commenced before 1/4/2019, and those who are charging the old rates and are taking the benefit of ITC. To tweak the ITC for this new concept from 1/4/2019, a major amendment has been brought in Rule 42. Till now, all the builders were expert in geometry. Now, after this Rule 42, Now they have to become more expertise in both arithmetic and algebra due to the complications involved in Rule 42. So we have today with us one of the young resource person, C. Anvesh Shetty from Bangalore. He is an expert in the field. He is an expert in both in academic as well as practical theory. And I think he will help all the members to properly understand this. What is important, why I'm stressing the importance here is September 2020 is approaching fast, and whatever the mistakes or the wrong things we have done in the past 1 year, so we have time before September 2020. The Rule 42 itself says that we have time till September 2020 to rectify or redo whatever the issues relating to ITC. So we have today Anvesh Shetty. So we are assured that he will give a proper solution to the entire mathematics arising from the Rule 42 situation. I thank the organizing committee, all the members for giving me this opportunity of inaugurating this program. I hereby formally announce the inauguration of this webinar or the virtual meeting. So thank you one and all. Over to the moderator. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ganesh Bhai sir, for the welcome address. Now let's proceed with the virtual meeting, CP virtual meeting. Before I start, let's have a small introduction to our today's speaker, Mr. Anvesh Shetty. CA Anvesh Shetty is a practicing chartered accountant from Mangalore. He completed his graduation in Alvas College, Mudabidre, and he has also trained more than 200 students in GST till date. And presently he is also pursuing LLB. He is in the final year now. He is specialized in GST and information security. Over to Anvesh Shetty sir. Thank you so much. We'll proceed with the session. Thank you. Over to Anvesh Shetty sir.
Thank you, sir. Before I begin, I want to thank Udupi branch of SIRC of ICI for giving me this opportunity of taking a session. I personally thank the chairman of Udupi branch, that is CA Pradeep Jogi sir, as well as secretary and today's moderator CA Lokesh sir, for considering me as a speaker. And also want to thank CA Ganesh sir for his sparking inaugural address, and where he began with the erstwhile tax laws, so many of confusions, and then with the hope that GST would put a full stop. But GST, instead of putting a full stop, put a comma. And with that comma, we are into so much of amendments, a part of which we'll be discussing today. So give me 1 second so that I can share my screen and we can get started. Okay. So Lokesh sir, whether my screen is visible?
Yes, visible sir. You can proceed with.
Yes.
It's working in order. It's in order.
Okay. So to begin with real estate sector, even before we start talking about real estate sector, we need to understand GST law. And understanding GST law is somewhat similar to reading a Zen story. So when you read the Zen story for the first time, though it is a very small story, we feel that, oh, I understood it. But the next day you open it and you start reading again, there is a newer meaning. The third day when you read it, the entire meaning is different. Same way, GST provisions. You read today, the meaning is different. You read tomorrow, the meaning is different. By the time one understands the meaning, the government interferes and comes with an amendment. So amongst this, so before we really get into the concept of real estate, first we need to get started with the basic concepts. Because unless we understand the basic concepts very clearly, understanding real estate is going to be a very challenging process. So as it is a virtual meeting, so what I have done is I have divided the entire the webinar or the session of 90 minutes into 3 sessions. The first session, I'm going to talk about what basically is a taxable supply and what exactly is exempt supply. And in the second part, we will talk about input tax credit. And in the third part, we will talk about Rule 42 in particular. So to begin with, the first part, that is what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply, we will first start with one very simple question. So you can see on screen, I have put particular tax rate amount. And I want you to read this particular thing, and I want you to think of a figure which is taxable supply here. So here we have sale of pen, that is 18% is tax rate. Sale of pencil, for the purpose of this discussion alone, let us treat it as exempt. Okay, so let us not worry whether it is really exempt or not. Let us say that sale of pencil is exempt. Then sale of alcoholic liquor, there is no levy on that. And sale of land, that is which comes under Schedule 3, Para 5, 5 lakh rupees. So all of you who are present today, think what is taxable supply out of this. Is it 10 lakh rupees? Or is it 18 lakh? Or is it 25 lakh? Or is it 30 lakh? You can also write in the chat box, answer what you feel is the correct answer. So is it 10 lakh, 18 lakh? Okay. Now, you have one figure in your mind. You have one figure in your mind. Now, before we actually discuss whether it is right or wrong, let us read the meaning of the word taxable supply. So let us look into section 2 clause 108, which talks about what is taxable supply. It says taxable supply means a supply of goods or service or both which is leviable to tax under this act. So focus your attention on the word leviable to tax. So whenever we talk about what is leviable to tax, we are referring to section 9 of GST, that is CGST Act. Section 9 of CGST simply says on all supply of goods and services, there shall be a tax called as CGST, except on two things. Which are those two things? One is alcoholic liquor for human consumption and one more is petroleum products. So except these two, on all goods and services, on all supply of goods and services, there shall be levy of GST. So now if you are coming back and looking at the example, sale of pen, 18%, so this becomes a taxable supply. This becomes a taxable supply. There is no doubt about it. But the very important question is whether sale of pencil, which is exempt, that 8 lakh rupees, is it taxable or is it not a taxable supply? When we look at the definition of taxable supply, it clearly says if it is leviable to tax, it is taxable supply. So even pencil is leviable to tax, irrespective of the fact that it was further made exempt. So when we look at the definition of taxable supply, this 18 lakh will become my taxable supply. Sale of alcoholic liquor is definitely not a taxable supply because there is no levy on the same thing. And sale of land is itself a Schedule 3 item. So it is kept outside the ambit of the definition of supply itself. So there is no question of calling it as taxable supply. So in here, it is 18 lakh rupees, which is my taxable supply. So that is the first thing that we need to understand. So taxable supply normally should include both taxable and exempt. But remember, the word taxable supply is like water. So if you put it to one glass, it will take the shape of that particular glass. If you put it to another glass, it will change its shape. Let us see in the coming example. Now let us look at one more, the same question, but here I want you to think what is exempt supply here. So if somebody asks you to find out what is exempt supply here, how would you arrive at exempt supply? So there is sale of pen which is given, sale of pencil which is given, sale of alcoholic liquor which is given, sale of land which is given. So what is exempt supply out of this? To understand what is exempt supply out of this, we need to go through the definition of what is exempt supply. So let us look at the definition. The definition of exempt supply is given in section 2 clause 47. It says exempt supply means supply of any goods or services or both which attracts three things: either nil rate of tax, or which is wholly exempt from tax, or includes non-taxable supply. Now, what do you mean by non-taxable supply? Non-taxable supply, when you look into the definition of the word non-taxable supply, it says those supplies on which there is no levy. So on what items there is no levy? On alcoholic liquor for human consumption, there is no levy. That means the definition of exempt supply will include alcoholic liquor for human consumption as well. So if you're going back, sale of pen is not an exempt supply. Sale of pencil is an exempt supply. So exempt 8 lakh is an exempt supply. Sale of alcoholic liquor for human consumption will again become an exempt supply because of the definition, which includes non-taxable supply as well. Now comes the question, whether sale of land is an exempt supply. Answer is, sale of land cannot be an exempt supply because it is not a supply at all. So once it is not a supply at all, you cannot think about whether there is levy or no levy. So in this particular example, the meaning of exempt supply or the value of exempt supply is going to be 15 lakh rupees. It is going to be 15 lakh rupees. So we studied what is taxable supply. There also we included pencil in the meaning of taxable supply. And we are studying what is exempt supply. Here also we are including pencil as exempt supply. So what exactly is the right answer? As I said, the meaning of the word taxable supply and exempt supply changes according to its situation. So it is not constant throughout the act. More about it we will learn in the coming slides. Now, at some places, they will ask you to find out both what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply. In such situation, you need to treat pencil, that is which is exempt, as exempt supply. So if the act asks you to find both taxable supply and exempt supply both, in such situation, only 10 lakh is going to be taxable supply and 8 lakh and 7 lakh is going to be exempt supplies. So this is just a warm-up things. So unless we understand what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply, we will not understand Rule 42. So now let us move forward. Same discussion about what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply for the purpose of ITC reversal. For the purpose of ITC reversal, what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply? For this, we need to study section 17 subsection 3. Now, what does section 17 subsection 3 talks about? So I have put the act on your screen so you can read it. It says, the value of exempt supply under subsection 2 shall be such as may be prescribed and shall include. So normal exempt supply plus these things. Which are the things? One is supplies on which recipient is liable to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism. One more is transactions in security. One more is sale of land plus subject to clause 5 of para 5 of, subject to clause B of para 5 of schedule 2. That is sale of completed building. Even this will come under the meaning of exempted supply. So that is to say, for the purpose of ITC reversal, 10 lakh is going to be taxable supply. Sale of pencil, which is anyways exempt by way of notification 2/2017, it is anyways exempt. Sale of alcoholic liquor, though there is no levy and it is a non-taxable supply, because it is covered within the meaning of exempt supply, even this will become exempt supply. Sale of land, though it is a schedule 3 item, and it should not actually come under the meaning of exempt supply, but with the specific inclusion in section 17 subsection 3, even sale of land will be treated as exempt supply. So we just saw that very simple word of what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply will keep on changing according to the different situations. But here in today's webinar, what we have to understand only with regards to ITC reversal. So for the purpose of ITC reversal, we will take exempted supply as exempt, alcoholic liquor as exempt, sale of land as exempt, sale of completed building as exempt supplies. Now, let us move forward. Now, one more thing. So as of now, we studied what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply. Now I want to continue that discussion and let us move into real estate industry. Now there is a table in front of you. Go through that table. I'll read out that for you. First is, there is commercial apartment which is sold before completion. Now, if any commercial apartment is sold before completion, it will amount to service. It will amount to supply of service by virtue of schedule 2 para 5. So what it says, commercial apartment is sold before completion. Tax rate is 18%. After abatement, it will come to effective 12%, but let us not worry about the rate. So 40 lakh is the taxable value, and commercial apartment which is sold after completion, that is 60 lakh rupees. So now on this, there is no GST as it is covered under Schedule 3. That is para 5 of Schedule 3, 60 lakh rupees. So I want you to tell me, or I want you to think that number in your mind. What is the proportion of taxable supply and exempt supply? Is it 40:60 or is it 50:50? This is important. This is very important. So is it 40:60 or is it 50:50? Now, what is this 50:50? That is area. So that is 5,000 square meter and 5,000 square meter. In both the cases, what is sold is 5,000 square meter each, but the value is different. So how do I ascertain the value of exempt supply and taxable supply when I talk about real estate transaction? Now, if you have already thought a figure, let us go to the next slide and answer your question. So by way of a removal of difficulty order 4/2019 central tax, they clarified that whenever we are talking about sale of completed building, whenever we are talking about sale of building after cutoff date, then the value of exempt supply and value of taxable supply shall be ascertained on the base of the carpet area, that is determined on the base of area of the construction of the complex. So in the previous slide, in this particular slide, the amount is 40 lakh and 60 lakh. The amount is 40 lakh and 60 lakh. So in the normal situation, if somebody asks what is taxable supply, what is exempt supply, we would say it is in the ratio of 40:60. But for the purpose of ITC reversal, that too in real estate industry, they say the amount is irrelevant. The amount is irrelevant. You need to look for area. So in this situation, 50% is taxable, 50% is exempt. 50% it is taxable because it is sold before the cutoff date, and 50% is exempt because it is unsold or it is sold after the cutoff date. Now, if you are clear with the concept till now, we can move forward. So if there is any doubt, you can type in your questions and I'll try to address those issues. Now, one more question. One more question. So now we have understood that we should not look at the amount column, but we have to look only on the area column. So this is what we have studied till now, or we have understood till now. Now this is how a typical real estate project would look like. And if you have to classify what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply out of this particular column, I want you to go through this particular table and have a figure in your mind. What is taxable supply and what is exempt supply? So we have sale of commercial apartment before completion. We have sale of commercial apartments after completion. We have sale of residential apartments before completion. We have sale of residential apartments after completion. We also have commercial apartments which are unsold. Before I take you to the next slide, I want you to go through it, take good 1 or 2 minutes and keep one figure in your mind. So to solve all the difficulties, let us say that amount column is irrelevant. Amount column is irrelevant. I want proportion. What is the proportion of taxable sale and exempt sale? Now, so if I sell a commercial apartment before completion, if I'm going to sell a commercial apartment before completion, no doubt it is a taxable supply. So no doubt it is a taxable supply. And if I sell a commercial apartment after completion, if I'm selling a commercial apartment after completion, no doubt it is a exempt supply. It is an exempt supply by virtue of section 17 subsection 3. That is what we have already studied. The question is, if I'm selling residential apartment before completion, definitely I'll pay tax at 1% or 5%, depending on whether it is affordable or not, about which we will discuss further. But when I'm collecting tax at 1% or 5%, do I call it as taxable supply or do I call it as exempt supply? So this is one of the moot question. So normally or logically speaking, anybody would say if I'm collecting tax, then it will become taxable supply. But for the purpose of input tax credit reversal, if I'm collecting tax at 1% or 5%, then even this has to be treated as exempt supply. this also has to be added to the value of exempt supply. So this is the one point that we need to be very careful about. Next is residential apartment. If I'm selling it after completion, no doubt about it, this becomes exempt supply. This definitely becomes exempt supply. Next comes the question. If there is a commercial apartment, it is unsold, it is not sold at all. So is there a supply? That is the first question we have in our mind. So unless I sell it, how can I call it as it is supply? Because supply has to be an activity. So not selling, is it an activity which will amount to exempt or taxable supply? For this, we need to read the explanation which is inserted. Okay. Now, let us read explanation 1 to rule 42(1)(I). What does it say? It says, in the tax period in which issuance of completion certificate or first occupation of the project takes place, value of E, so value of E basically refers to value of exempt supply, value of E shall also include aggregate carpet area of the apartments which have not been booked. So even if an apartment is unsold, may it be commercial, may it be residential, it will be treated as exempt supply, or it will be added to the value of exempt supply. So coming back here, even if I have a commercial apartment which is unsold, it will be added to the meaning of exempt supply. So what is my total area? It is 5,000 plus 5,000 plus 3,000 plus 2,000 plus 5,000. So total area is 20,000, out of which what is taxable? 5,000 is taxable, and what is exempt? 15,000 is exempt. Now, I said residential apartment, the point number 3 here, I said residential apartment, if I'm collecting 1% or 5%, it still will be treated as an exempt supply, where it is told. It is told in explanation 2. If you go through explanation 2 of rule 42(1)(I), it says carpet area of apartments, tax on construction of which is paid or payable at the rate specified for item I, IA, IB, IC and ID, that is 1% or 5% in simple language, then it shall be taken into account of for calculation of value of E. So even if you're selling your residential apartment at 1% or 5%, the same shall be added back to the value of exempt supply. So this is one of the very important understanding that we need to have before we go to understand real estate provisions. So if everybody is clear up to this, we can continue. If there is any question till now, as far as classification of taxable supply and exempt supply, you may ask. If not, then we can go for the next slide. Okay. So now let us move to the next slide. So we completed the first part, that is how do we compute taxable supply and how do we compute exempt supply as far as real estate industry is concerned. A quick recap of what we studied, because that is very important for us to understand the next segment. That is, as far as real estate industry is concerned, we don't go by the value, but we go by the carpet area. And if commercial apartments or residential apartment, if it is sold after completion, it will be added to the value of exempt supply. Next is, if residential apartments are sold at 1% rate or 5% rate, even that will be added to the meaning of exempt supply. And if residential or commercial apartments, if they are unsold as on the date of completion, then even those will be added to the value of exempt supply. So having understood those, let us understand the input tax credit concept in GST. So section says, every registered person shall, subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed and in the manner specified in section 49, be entitled to take credit of input tax credit. So whenever one person makes any purchase, and as long as he is a registered person, he shall be eligible, he shall be entitled to claim the input tax credit. But there can be conditions and restrictions which the government can put. One of the important thing that we need to notice here is, as long as an input is used in the course or furtherance of business, input tax credit will not be denied. Now, one question I want to ask is, let us say I purchase some inputs to manufacture some item. And as on the date of purchase of inputs, the item what I'm manufacturing is taxable. Subsequently, let us say after 6 months, this particular item what I manufactured becomes exempt. Question is, should I reverse the input tax credit which I have claimed on receipt of my inputs? I repeat my question. The question is, I purchase some inputs and I prepared a product which was taxable as on the date of purchase, but subsequently after 6 months, the product became exempt. So should I reverse the credit which I availed when I purchased this input, or should I think that input tax credit is an entitlement? Once availed, I need not reverse it, because as on the date of purchase, the output was taxable. Hence, this is a vested right. I don't have to reverse it. Which argument is correct? I'd like to invite the attention of the viewers to section 18 subsection 4, which discuss on this particular issue. It says, if you purchase any item which subsequently becomes exempt, item itself may become exempt, or the completed product, the final product may become exempt. In such situation, one has to reverse the credit which lies in the stock. So GST law is very clear. It says, as long as you're using an input to make a taxable output, we will give you the credit. As soon as you purchase the input which is used to manufacture an exempted item, we will deny the credit. We will take back the credit. So this is the concept of input tax credit in its nutshell. Now, there might be a situation where I may use a common input. to manufacture both taxable supply as well as exempt supply. So in such situation, whether credit will be allowed to me or credit will be disallowed to me. So if I am making any purchase which is exclusively used to make a taxable supplies, credit will be completely allowed. If I am making any purchase, to make exclusively exempt supply, credit will be totally denied. But confusion lies in the fact that if I'm using a common input, to manufacture or to supply both taxable as well as exempt supply, what happens to the input tax credit? Whether I'm eligible to avail it or whether I should reverse the entire thing. So we need to look into section 17 subsection 2, which talks about where the goods or service or both are used by the registered persons, partly for effecting taxable supplies and partly for effecting exempt supplies, then input tax credit shall be restricted to so much of the input tax as is attributable to the taxable supply. So now section 17.2 clearly says, if you are using a common input for both the purposes, then you will not get entire credit. You need to restrict your credit only to the extent of taxable supply. Now comes the question, how do I restrict it to only to the taxable supply? This is where we study Rule 42. Because Rule 42 gives you the mechanism about how do you find out the credit which is attributable to only taxable portion. Now, as far as reversal is concerned, broadly there are two rules. One is Rule 42 and one is Rule 43. Now, Rule 42 specifically talks about input and input services, and Rule 43 talks about capital goods. Now, what is capital goods? The definition is very clear. It says anything which is capitalized in the books of the registered person is capital goods. So in simple word, if it goes to your balance sheet, it becomes capital goods. If it goes to the debit side of your P&L account, it becomes input or input services. If it is goods, it becomes input. If it is services, it becomes input services. Now, in this particular session, we will only talk about Rule 42. We will not even touch Rule 43 because Rule 43 alone requires discussion of 2 more hours. Now, talking about Rule 42, it says, as I already told previously, if I am making any purchase and if I am exclusively using it for the purpose of taxable supplies, entire credit is allowed. If I am making any purchase entirely for effecting an exempt supply, entire credit will be blocked. But if I am making a purchase which is used for both taxable supply and exempt supply, then it will be apportioned between both taxable supply and exempt supply. This is where one needs to understand, or one needs to know how to find out taxable supply and exempt supply. We already discussed how do you arrive at taxable supply and how do you arrive at exempt supply as far as real estate industry is concerned. For all the other industry, it is not carpet area, because for other industry, there is no question of carpet area. It is on the basis of value we do this apportionment. Now, Rule 42 excise, whatever we do, it is a monthly excise. So every month I need to find out what is the taxable supply for that month, what is the exempt supply for that month, and in that particular proportion, in that particular ratio, I have to divide my common credits. I have to divide my common credits. So this is the basic understanding. Now, so why there was a need to amend Rule 42? This is the very important question. Why there was a need to amend Rule 42? For this, we have to go back and read two cases. In fact, there are many other cases as well, but these are the recent ones. That is Measure Alembic Limited. That is one of the case, and one more is Shenu Limited versus CCE. So in this particular case, both of them were real estate dealers. I'd call them promoters. So what they did was, in the year 1 they made purchase, in the year 2 they made purchase, and in year 3 they did not make any purchase, but they made sales. Now the question is, in the year 3, when you make sale after completion, should you reverse only year 3 credit, or should you also reverse year 1, year 2 credit? Let's understand with the help of a simple example. Now let us say I am a promoter, and I have started a project in the year 2018-19, which also went to 19-20, and beginning of 2021, the project got completed and I made the supply. Now, in the year 18-19, that is the first year, I made purchases. So I have common credit of 10 lakh rupees. In 19-20 also, I make purchase. So I have a ITC of 10 lakh rupees. In 2021, I don't make any purchases. Let us say. So my ITC is also 0. So in the year 1, my taxable supply is 50 lakh rupees, my exempt supply is 0. Year 2, my taxable supply is 60 lakh rupees, exempt supply is 0. In year 3, as my building is already completed, there is no taxable supply that can take place. So all the supply what I'm making is exempt supply. Now the question is, if I follow Rule 42, what is the credit that I have to reverse? One thing that we need to understand, the Rule 42 excise, we need to do monthly, also annually. So every month I will find out what is the eligible credit, what is the ineligible credit. This particular exercise I'll repeat for one entire year. So 18-19, for the entire year I'll find out what is the entire year annual credit, that is common credit, and I will find out for that particular year what is the taxable supply, what is exempt supply. In a given case, in 2018-19, there is credit of 10 lakh rupees, taxable supply is 50 lakh rupees, exempt supply is 0. That means in 18-19, there is no question of ITC reversal, because I am not making an exempt supply in the year 18-19. So entire 10 lakh rupees becomes eligible credit. In the year 19-20, also same thing. I purchased 10 lakh rupees is my credit, making only taxable supply, making no exempt supply. So when I do the annual excise, as there is no exempt supply, I will not reverse any credit. But in 2021, I don't have any credit. Though I am making exempt supply, I don't have to reverse anything, because Rule 42 is an annual excise. It is not project-wise excise, it is annual excise. So every year you start fresh. So because of this, government department felt that they are losing lot of revenue. Because almost all the inputs, all the purchases happens in the initial years of real estate project. Subsequently, when the project gets completed, everything is exempt supply. So in the last year, nothing gets reversed. So to avoid all these things, they amended the act. So they amended Rule 42 by way of notification 16/2019, Central Tax dated 29/3/19, which is effective from 1/4/19. So it says, for the purpose of this clause, it is hereby clarified that in case of supply of service covered by clause B of para 5 of schedule 2, that is sale of building, the value of T4 shall be 0. Now what is T4 here? T4 in simple word means the credit which is exclusively used for effecting taxable supplies. The credit which is exclusively used for effecting taxable supplies. So we already discussed that if there is any purchase which is exclusively used to make taxable supplies, no need of apportionment, you will get the entire credit. That is why they made this amendment and they said T4 shall always be 0. So that means all the credit will be common credit. So irrespective of the fact that I actually used it for commercial complex alone, it will still be common credit. And once I call it as common credit, I need to apportion between taxable supply and exempt supply. Now comes one more question. After this amendment, should I still do Rule 42 reversal annually? The answer is no. Why? Because they added Rule 42.3 and Rule 42.4 and they said you don't have to reverse annually. Monthly you do it, but don't do annual reversal. You need to do reversal project wise. So after the amendment, how will our calculation go? The same situation. So in 1819, 1920, 2021. So in the first 2 years, I have credits of 10 lakh rupees each. Though these credits are actually used to effect taxable supplies, by virtue of the amendment, the entire 20 lakh will be treated as common credit. Once I call it as common credit, then I need to apportion it between taxable supply and exempt supply. So entire 20 lakh will become my common credit. Then I have to find out what is my taxable supply, what is my exempt supply. So right from the beginning, we are discussing how do you arrive at taxable supply and exempt supply. We discussed that if I'm selling before obtaining completion certificate, it becomes taxable supply. If I'm selling after obtaining completion certificate or occupancy certificate, it becomes exempt supply. So in the given case, what is my taxable supply? It is 1,20,00,000 rupees. What is my exempt supply? That is 80 lakh rupees. So that is in the ratio of 12:8. So the credit of this 20 lakh rupees should be apportioned in the ratio of 12:8. So 12 becomes eligible credit, 8 becomes ineligible credit. So by virtue of this amendment, so I want to quickly take you back to the previous slide we discussed. Before passing that amendment, in the similar case, the real estate industry, there was no requirement to reverse any credit because Rule 42 excise was annual excise. But after amendment, they said it is not going to be an annual excise, it is going to be the project-wise exercise. And as it is a project-wise exercise, you need to reverse the proportionate credit. Now, I also want to make one more important point here. This is why it becomes important for any builder, for any promoter to maintain project-wise records. Because if he is not maintaining project-wise records, and if he's running simultaneously 3 to 4 projects, if he is dumping all the ITC into one common account, then he cannot do reversal under Rule 42.3 or Rule 42.4 because this has to be done project-wise. So if it is not done till now, then it is advisable to go back and bifurcate it on the basis of every project. Now, so we completed the second aspect as well. So the second aspect was to see how Rule 42 impacts the bifurcation of credit between taxable and exempt portion. Now let us go to the third segment. The third segment is how the actual computation should go. That is now after 1/4/2019, that is post amendment, in the real estate sector, that is 1/4/19. So all the projects are classified either as real estate projects or residential real estate projects. So in simple word, we call it as REP or RREP. Now what is REP? Now let us look at case 1. Before I read out case 1, REP means a project where commercial portion is more than 15%, of the total project area. Now let us look at case 1. So in case 1, the total project area is 10,000 square meters. That is 4,000 plus 4,500 plus 1,500. So out of this entire 10,000 square meters, affordable residential is 4,000 square meter. Other than affordable residential, that is 4,500 square meter, and commercial apartment is 1,500 square meter. That means the commercial apartment is only 1,500 square meter out of 10,000 square meter. That means commercial apartment is not more than 15%. Commercial apartment is not more than 15%. Because of this, the entire project will become RREP. So this particular project will become RREP. Next, let us look at case 2. Case 2, again 10,000 square meter, but out of this 10,000 square meter, commercial apartment is 1,600. That is more than 15%. That is more than 15%. Hence, it becomes REP. Now, what is the difference? The difference is, if it becomes RREP, even the commercial portion is taxed at 5%. Even the commercial portion is taxed at 5%. But if it is REP, commercial portion is taxed at 12%. So that is the difference. As far as affordable residential is concerned, as far as other than affordable residential is concerned, there is no change. It is taxed at 1% and 5% in both the cases. The only change is what happens to the treatment of commercial apartments. Now, this is one point. The second point is whether they can claim input tax credit at all. Now, as per the law amended after 1/4/2019, for RREP, there is no question of availing any credit. So for RREP, input tax credit itself is outrightly denied. They say it is a compulsory, you need to go for this particular scheme. There is no choice for you. And once you go for this particular option, you have to pay 1%, 5%, and you will not get any input tax reversal. You will not get any input tax credit. So once you don't get any input tax credit, is there a question of Rule 42 coming into picture? Rule 42, read with section 17(2), comes into picture only when I am making both taxable supplies and exempt supplies. Also remember, for the purpose of Rule 42, if I am just collecting 1% and 5%, 1% or 5%, it will be treated as exempt supply. It will be treated as exempt supply. So there is no question of any taxable supply at all. So I don't even have to apply Rule 42. I don't have to do any apportionment also. So Rule 42 does not come in case number 1. Now let us talk about case number 2. Case number 2 talks about 4,000 is my affordable residential, 4,400 is other than residential, affordable residential, and 1,600 is commercial. So now the question is, for 1% and 5%, it is exempt, I will not claim any credit. But for 12%, can I claim the credit? The answer is yes, I can claim the credit. Now, if I am claiming the credit, should I go back and refer to Rule 42? Should I apply Rule 42 in this picture? So to think whether Rule 42 comes into picture or not, first we need to understand, am I making taxable and exempt supply both? Answer is yes. 1% and 5% will be treated as exempt supplies and 12% will be treated as taxable supply. So when I'm making both exempt supply and taxable supply, I need to apply Rule 42. So now let us say that common credit for the entire project is 1 lakh rupees. Okay, so we will take some numbers to get a clear cut picture. So if there is common credit of 1 lakh rupees, in case number 2, that 1 lakh rupees has to be apportioned in the ratio of 8,400 is to 1,600 or 84 is to 16. So I will be eligible to claim credit of 16,000 rupees and 84,000 rupees of credit I need to reverse. In case number 1, entire 1 lakh rupees, I will not be eligible to claim at all. So there is no question of reversal. So this is case number 1, case 2. So here I am talking about new project. So when I'm talking about new project, I'm referring to the project which started after 1/4/2019, on or after 1/4/2019. Now comes one more interesting question. So we are discussing about project which started after 1/4/2019. What about the ongoing projects? Ongoing projects simply means the project which had already started, which already commenced before 1/4/2019. At that time, they were given with an option whether to continue with the old rate or to opt for the new rate. So let us see those situation also. Let us say there is an ongoing project. There is an ongoing project, and the promoter has exercised the option of going through the old rate only. So he does not want to come for new rate. He wants to continue with old rate and still avail input tax credit. So here again, so just like we discussed in the previous slide, that the first one, is it RREP, REP? Should we worry about that? We don't have to worry about that because he's continuing under the old rate only. So there is no difference what happens here. He will be eligible to avail input tax credit. He will be eligible to avail input tax credit. Now, should he reverse any credit as on 1/4/2019? Answer is no. He need not reverse any credit as on 1/4/2019, or else the government or the department had asked to reverse the credit either in annexure 1 or annexure 2, about which we will discuss in the next slide. But here, as far as case number 3 is concerned, he can still avail the credit post 1/4/2019, and once the project is complete, he has to make a list of credit what is availed from 1/7/2017 till the date of completion of project. That entire credit will be treated as common credit, and that has to be apportioned between taxable portion and exempt portion. So for case number 3, Rule 42 applies. For case number 3, Rule 42 applies. Now let us talk about case number 4. Even for the case number 4, there is no difference because these are the old projects. So even for the case number 4, the Rule 42 applies. That is, once the project is complete, mind you that you need to do this exercise every month, as well as you need to do this exercise once the project is complete, not every year. You need to do Rule 42 reversal. The interesting part is going to be the projects which started before 1/4/2019, which is also called as ongoing project, but they opted for new rate as on 1/4/2019. What happens to them? Now, as per the amendment, which we already discussed, the promoters were given an option either to complete as under the old rate or under the new rate. If they wanted to apply for the new rate, then the promoters had to undergo one exercise. That exercise was to find out what is the credit already availed up to 31/3/19, out of which how much is eligible, how much is not eligible. So they were asked to prepare an annexure. So again, let me write, this is an RREP and this is REP. So they said, if you are an REP, you were supposed to prepare an annexure called as annexure 1. And if you are an RREP, you were supposed to prepare an annexure called as annexure 2. In that particular annexure, one was expected to ascertain what was the eligible credit up to 31/3/19 and what was the ineligible credit up to 31/3/19. So once he ascertained that, he was carried to the new scheme. Now, if you are talking about RREP, if you are talking about residential real estate project, what happens? As on 31/3/19, you make calculation in annexure 2 and you submit it to the department, reversing all the excess credit what is availed. And from that date, you don't even claim any further credit because you are into the new scheme. So you already did all the reversal exercise as on 31/3/19 and you are not claiming any future credit. So in case number 5, submission of annexure 2 itself is enough. There is no need to reverse credit as per Rule 42. Because as you are not availing any future credits, there is no question of reversing under Rule 42 comes into picture. But if you are talking about case 6, that is, you are a real estate project, and you already calculated under annexure 1 that what is eligible, what is ineligible, and you reversed what is ineligible up to 31/3/19. But from 1/4/19, as far as 1% and 5% is concerned, that is for the residential apartments, you will not avail any credit. But as far as 12% is concerned, you will still continue availing credit. So in case of an ongoing project which has opted for the new rate, then you need to submit annexure 1 that is as on May 10, which was extended to May 20th, annexure 1 you should have already submitted, plus you also should make calculation of Rule 42 in the year in which you complete the project. So this is the discussion as far as how should the reversal happen. Now, as far as this annexure 1 and annexure 2 is concerned, I did not want to take up in this particular webinar because discussion alone of annexure 1 and annexure 2, the computation itself is very lengthy. And as Ganesh sir pointed out, it is too much of algebra put in place. But one thing that we need to appreciate is the government is taking enough measures to simplify this particular GST laws as far as real estate is concerned. But at the same time, we also see that along with the GST law, there is a parallel real estate law what is running within GST law. Sometimes it is confusing. For example, I want to invite the attention of the viewers towards how do you ascertain annexure 2? How do you find out the value in annexure 1 or annexure 2? That is, if you want to convert to the new scheme. There, they ask you to apportion between taxable supplies and the exempt supplies. And then there is a very lengthy formula. The formula goes this way. It says T into F1 into F2 into F3 into F4. Now, I will not tell you what T, what F1, what F2, F3, F4 is. I will simply put a question and I want your opinion on the same thing. Now, my question is, if there are two promoters, two identical promoters who the one person has completed 50% of the building, that is residential portion, 50% is complete, and there is one more builder who has just completed 10% of the building, who should be getting more credit? Is it the person who completed 50% should be getting more credit, or is it the person who just completed 10% should get the more credit? So as a normal understanding, we feel that the person who completed 50% should get more credit compared to the person who just completed 10%. But when you arrive at the value using this particular formula of computing value as per annexure 2, the F4, the value of F4 seems to be, I'd say there is some mistake, or F4 does not represent the idea of the lawmakers, because the value of F4 is less for the person who completed 50% and it is more for the person who just completed 10%. But as said, this is the new law, so it will constantly undergo even more amendments, more changes. But an effort has been made to understand in today's session, to understand what Rule 42 says. We will not bother about what annexure 1 is, what annexure 2 is. That is a discussion for another day. So what is the take home that I want all the viewers to have from today's session is fundamentally understanding the difference between what is taxable supply and what is exempt supply, and how input tax credit mechanism actually works as far as section 17.2 is concerned, section 17.3 is concerned. Now, whether it is legal to add the value of sale of land in ascertaining the value of exempt supply, that is not the matter of our today's discussion, because that is up to the court to decide. So let us not discuss on that aspect. So by now, by this, I come to the end of the discussion session within the first 60 minutes, which was given to me. So as it was asked to give 30 minutes for the question and answer. So I am open for the question. So if viewers have any question about the slides which we discussed till now, you may please ask in the chat sessions, and I'll try my best to answer those queries.
Unless, sir, there is one question in the Q&A.
Okay.
Please clarify whether reversal under Rule 42 is based on amount or carpet area. For example, if till completion no area was sold, entire future sale will be exempt. Hence, the entire input credit may have to be reversed.
Correct. That is exactly the point of discussion. That is, if till the date of completion, if nothing is sold, then even the unsold area will be deemed as exempt. And hence, if we apply Rule 42, there won't be any taxable supply at all. The entire supply will be exempt supply, and we have to reverse the entire credit. Yes, sir. Is there any other questions?
No, we have not received any other questions. Only one question is there.
No, if there is no question, then for the next 20 minutes, I'd want to take members through annexure 1 or annexure 2 if they prefer.
There is one more question we have received. How to reverse in that case?
Okay. Now, how to reverse in that case? So when you look at rule 42, sub rule 3 and 4, they say, how do you reverse the credit? Now, let us say I make some purchase in year 1, I make also some purchase in year 2, and I avail the credit on those purchases. And I don't know whether I'll be making any taxable supply or exempt supplies. So I wait till I complete the project. So on the date of completion, even if let us say hypothetically none of the apartments are sold, let us say I complete my project in the year 2020-21. I complete my project in the year 2020-21. So on 2021 March 31st, this particular thing will become my liability. So I'll put it this way by writing an example. So now let us say that year 1, I have made a purchase and I have credit of 10 lakh rupees. Year 2, I have made a purchase, I have credit of 10 lakh rupees. Let us say there is no taxable supply at all. And only in the year 3, that is 2021, I have an exempt supply of 80 lakh rupees. So how should the calculation be? So calculation is pretty simple. In 2021, after 2021, that is April 1st of 2021, I need to reverse this 20 lakh rupees. If I don't reverse this 20 lakh rupees, then the interest becomes due. Interest becomes due and I need to pay interest on this entire 20 lakh rupees till the date I reverse this particular credit. So let us say that instead of April 1st reversing on 1st of April, let us say I reverse on April 30th, 2021. Then I need to reverse along with the interest for 30 days. So more about this, it is clearly given in rule 42.3 and rule 42.4 that interest as per section 51 shall be payable. Okay, so there is, I have not used the input. Though you have not, so that is where, though you have not used the input, you are supposed to reverse the credit because the interest provision is very clear. They don't say that, you need to actually utilize also. Even if you avail it till the time you reverse it, you need to pay the interest.
There is one more question received from Malesh Kumar, C. Malesh Kumar. Like before amendment, then all the input has to be reversed since no taxable sale in case of year-wise reversal.
Before amendment, then all input has to be reversed. Since no taxable.
Since no taxable sale in case of year-wise reversal, I was mentioning something.
So Mallesh sir, I have a slight difficulty in understanding the question. It would be great help if you could rewrite your question. So Prashant sir is asking, I have not used the input, still I have to pay the interest. Yes, sir. You need to reverse the credit. You need to reverse the credit as on 1st of April. That is the date what they have given. If you don't reverse it, then only the credit, you need to pay the interest. So again, that is a moot question. That is whether should I pay the interest even if I have not availed the ITC. And law is in its inception stage. Maybe we should wait for certain court orders which would say that even only interest should pay after you utilize it. But as of now, what law stands today, you need to pay interest soon after you avail the credit, whether you utilize it or not. A reference, I want to give a reference for this particular discussion. The idea comes from section 16 subsection 3, which asks the supplier to make the payment to the recipient. Sorry, it asks the recipient to make the payment to the supplier within 180 days from the date of invoice. Now let us say that as a recipient, I have made some purchases, I have availed the credit, irrespective of the fact that whether I have utilized the credit or not. If I don't make the payment to my supplier within 180 days, then I need to reverse this credit, the ITC, along with the 18% interest, irrespective of the fact that whether I have utilized the credit or not. So say, taking the same rationale, I strongly feel that though I have not used this input, I should reverse the credit along with the interest. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. We have we don't have any other questions.
Okay. So in that case, shall I go ahead with Annexure 1 and Annexure 2, or shall we keep that topic for another day?
We can go with the Annexure 1 and Annexure 2 for in brief we can go.
Okay. Just a very brief aspect. I would not cover it in very detail because it is a lengthy topic.
There is one more question.
Throw
some light on purchase restrictions up to 80%. Any other forms to be submitted relating to such purchases? From CA Subhash Chandra from Mangalore.
Okay. So rather than talking about Annexure 1 and 2, we can talk about other aspects on real estate. So first thing, what the government has done is they have restricted the credit as long as you're making sale of residential apartment, whether it is taxed at 1% and 5%. Along with that, they also told that all the purchases of which 80% should be from the registered suppliers. Now, if I don't make 80% of the purchase from the registered suppliers, then the shortfall shall be paid by the builder or the promoter under reverse charge mechanism at the rate of 18%. Again, it is a very interesting aspect that one needs to observe here is, hypothetically, let us say a builder is making a total purchase of 1 crore rupees, out of which he is making 75 lakh rupees from the registered persons and only 25 lakh rupees from the unregistered persons. Now, as the law says, I have to make purchase of input and input services at least up to 80% from registered persons alone. The shortfall of 5 lakh rupees shall be paid by the recipient, shall be paid by the builder under reverse charge mechanism. That is, on 5 lakh rupees, I need to discharge tax at the rate of 18%. So that is one aspect. But what becomes more interesting here is, let us say all the 75 lakh rupees purchase what I made from the registered persons are taxable, and let us say all the purchase I made from unregistered persons are exempt. So all these purchases are exempt. Now comes the question, should I pay GST at the rate of 5% even on this exempt portion? GST at the rate of 18% on this 5 lakh rupees. When we read the law as it is, the interpretation goes that even on this 5 lakh rupees, you need to discharge GST at the rate of 18%. So whether it is taxable or whether it is exempt, the law does not make any mentioning about it. It says on inward supplies, you shall pay 18% under reverse charge mechanism. So even on the exempt portion, you need to pay 18% GST. So as far as any statement that has to be submitted, answer is yes. So this exercise is annual exercise. This is not a project-wise exercise. Sorry. This particular thing you need to do as far as this 80% is concerned. This is for all other input and input services except cement. Now, as far as cement is concerned, it has to be purchased 100% from the registered dealer itself. If you are not purchasing from the registered person, for the entire value, one has to pay GST under reverse charge mechanism at the rate of 28%. That is applicable tax rate. Now, when we compute this 80% and 20%, we shall not include TDR, we shall not include FSI, we shall not include electricity, we shall not include the petroleum products. So there are a list of certain items which shall not be included. But apart from that, the major items, what is basically used in the real estate sector, comes under the purview of this 80% and 80%. So as far as the 80% reversal is concerned, this has to be done annually as well. So at the end of every year, you are supposed to make calculation and you need to make the reversal. And for this purpose, again, it is very important for the registered person to maintain separate books of account, because this reversal happens project wise. So it does not happen registered person wise. So if a person has 3 different projects, for every project we see 80-20% separately, and we do not see it at together. So this is one of the point that we need to keep in mind. So if there are no further questions, Pradeep sir, I feel we should conclude the program, because annexure 1 and annexure 2 will take a long time for us to complete.
Okay, sir.
Okay, one more question that is asked by Padmanabha Kedalya sir. Can you brief about the affordable residential apartment and other than affordable residential apartment? That is a very good question, sir. It is as far as affordable and other than affordable is concerned. So every residential apartment can be classified under this 2 category. So affordable means it has to meet the twin condition. The twin condition is the carpet area should be less than 60 square meter and the value should be less than 45 lakh rupees. The value should be less than 45 lakh rupees. Now this 60 square meter, it is for the metropolitan cities, and for other than metropolitan cities, it is 90 square meter. So if you are taking example of Mangalore and Udupi, instead of 60 square meters, we consider whether an apartment that is residential, if it is less than 90 square meter and the value of which is less than 45 lakh rupees, will be treated as an affordable apartment, for which GST rate is going to be 1%. And if it is other than affordable one, then the GST rate is going to be 5%. But this is the common usage what we do. But one thing I want to add here, that when you look at the notification, rate notification, there is nothing called as 1% and 5%, but instead we see 1.5% and 7.5%. Then how do we arrive at this particular value of 1% and 5% is from the value we deduct 1/3 of the portion. So let us say the value is 60 lakh. If the value is 60 lakh rupees, we will not do 60 lakh into directly 7.5%. We will do 60 lakh. One second. We will do 60 lakh into 2/3 multiplied by 7.5%. Now, what is this 2/3? The 2/3 is an abatement. So, abatement given towards excluding the value of land. Now, whether such exclusion is ad hoc exclusion is possible, that again that question has to be taken up by some court, and only the court can answer those questions. Because as on date, because in the service tax also similar cases were there, and the court probably Delhi High Court gave a judgment saying that the law cannot give an ad hoc value for the value of land. Let us say actual value of land, if it is more than that, then the government cannot say you can deduct only 1/3 of it. It has to give actual value as deduction. But again, as on today, what law stands, we have to follow this method. So this is what affordable and other than affordable is. So if there is any residential apartment which does not meet the criteria of less than 60 or 90 square meter and 45 lakh rupees, then it becomes other than affordable residential apartments, on which the net rate is 5%. Yes, sir.
I think we have done with all the questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we can wind the session, sir.
Go to see Lokesh Shetty.
Yes, thank you, sir. It's my honor and privilege to propose a vote of thanks for the today's session. On behalf of Udupi branch of SIRC of ICAI, I render my deep sense of appreciation to our today's speaker, Mr. Anvesh Shetty, for the wonderful session. Definitely, I believe this session has put a lot of value addition for all the participants who have participated in today's virtual meeting. Thank you so much, Anvesh sir. Thank you so much. At the same time, I also thank our branch chairman for arranging this virtual CP seminar for all the participants of Udupi, first ever virtual meeting today. Thank you so much, sir. Pradeep sir, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
sir.
also thank our past chairman, CA Ganesh Vai sir, for taking his time as the chief guest for this today's virtual meeting. I also thankful to you, sir. Thank you so much. At the same time, I am also would like to show my acknowledge our gratitude to the Bangalore ITT for arranging this seminar. I am also thankful for the chairman of the Bangalore branch of SIRC of ICAI, Ravindra Kore sir, for supporting us for making this virtual seminar. Thank you so much. I also thank all the participants for spending their valuable time in attending this session. Thank you so much, one and all. Thank you, sir. Over to Pradeep, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We'll wind up the session. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, sir.